Welcome to this edition of Psychedelic Radio. I'm Christina Thomas, the president and founder of Myself Wellness, and my co-host is Charles Patty. Together, we co-founded the Warriors of Consciousness, a not-for-profit to help people gain access to psychedelic ketamine therapy. Together, we are on a mission to help save and transform lives through this treatment. In this podcast, we'll be pushing boundaries, breaking taboos, and shedding light on the use of psychedelic medicines. We want to share expert knowledge and first-hand accounts of those who've experienced transformative psychic shifts using psychedelics. Journeying with us today on this edition of Psychedelic Radio is Catherine Noley. Catherine is an entrepreneur of over 30 years. She creates experiences that are memorable and is passionate about seeing others happy. She's a mental health advocate and is passionate about the neurological benefits of psychedelics. And like us, her passion is to helping others heal. Thanks for joining us today, Catherine.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
Thank you.
So the first question we usually open up with is, what made you passionate about getting into this field? What ignited that flame inside of you?
I would say what made me passionate is at 54 years old and trying a lot of different modalities for my depression. The big turning point was a traumatic car accident 6 years ago. And trusting in traditional medicines and traditional psychotherapy just continued to make it worse. And then I found myself in my first psilocybin journey. And immediately knew it was profound. And like I normally do with most things in my life, studied, did a deep dive, and proceeded with deeper ceremonies that opened up many doors since then.
Amazing.
I love it. Yeah, no, and I love the fact that you said you did a deep dive. I'm a huge fan of those myself. No, like, listen, like, I a lot of people are, I think everything's great. And like, I think microdosing might be good for people, and I'm sure that it has some great antidepressant effects, but I really feel like the deep dives are where the real therapeutic value of the medicine lies. And it's not just scraping the surface, but we get to the root issues and the root cause of why we were suffering to begin with.
Absolutely. And looking back at it now, when we're in the midst of not thinking clearly, not being our authentic self, I say this to many people, we're doing the best we can do at that moment. And each journey showed me a new facet. And my story may be very different than some people, but I approached it like I've done a lot of things in my life. I just studied it and eased my human mind of the physiological things that could happen. And once I put that at ease, and then it was a matter of finding a sacred space, finding a good space holder, finding good medicine. And then I could let the journey take me a little deeper, and the healing just kept kind of unraveling, because I look back at it and I think of how much I did in 2 years. I really lost myself, like they say, to find yourself. I did like 20 ayahuasca ceremonies in 2 years, well, about maybe 2.5. And that proceeded with the mushrooms, and that opened up. And that actually showed me it showed me the toad. And that's when I ended up finding that through ayahuasca journeys.
No, I love it. I love it. They say the only way out is within. And it sounds
so true.
It sounds like you had that.
You just don't get it. I mean, sometimes I have to reacclimate myself. It's with this particular conversation, we're touching so many different levels of consciousness, so many different types of people that are drawn to the medicine, that are listening to this. And I always try to adjust what I'm saying and how I'm saying it so it can relate to them. And so I know we have many people that do deep dives, and we probably have some people that maybe have never touched a psychedelic. Maybe cannabis is saved their life, So I'm going to try to keep things as open, but also very understandable and relatable as I can.
Yeah. No,
Great.
like everything's perfect, and the truth is that, what might have worked for me might not be what helps somebody else on their own healing journey. Everybody's on their own individual healing journeys. I just know from my personal experiences from suffering for over 20 years, and then with depression, anxiety, and I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol. It took some deep dive experiences for me to really, see the light going down to oneness and realizing that, everything is connected and the answer is love. And, stop taking things so personally because, in my opinion, it's like, I'm just a concept. We all kind of are. It's just like, we're all consciousness, we're all it. And this is just, the dream of life, the journey, and we're supposed to embrace it and watch everything play out, play the observer.
Oh, well said. That's so beautiful. So beautiful.
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
what are you doing now?
Gosh, I would say, how do I answer that question? What am I doing now is, I meet people where they're at. So if they've never don't know anything about psychedelics, then we start there. Maybe it's a lot of sending them clinical research data from universities. There's 25 universities in the US that have psychedelic and consciousness departments now. The clinical research is just developing every day as we speak. It's so I send them articles to ease their human mind. Because again, the more comfortable we are and the more our mind understands something, then we're able to let our spirit surrender. But my favorite, I guess if we were to say if there was a favorite love of mine, but I definitely would never say everyone needs this or that. Like you said earlier, everyone works for some person, doesn't work for someone else. My favorite is the transformation that I've seen from the molecule 5-MeO DMT. Not only did it happen with me, but I've seen it probably over 600 people now. It's just beyond words. Probably one of my favorite parts is when they're ready to talk and we're just connecting and I ask them how was it, and they just struggle with words, and it's just tears will run down their face about. You just see the joy and the peace on their face, but they can't put it into words. And that is why I have changed my whole life to help people find this medicine.
That's amazing. I don't have any 5 experience. I have about 40 breakthroughs on NN-DMT, and in my psychedelic journey, my psychedelic journey is over. I ended it a couple of years ago. I kept getting the same message over and over again, but I personally feel that DMT and actually like ketamine, like we have a facility that we do psychedelic ketamine therapy at here in Bonita Springs, Florida. It's called My Self Wellness, and we do mostly intermuscular shots of the medicine, and I feel that like an intermuscular shot of ketamine at the correct doses is very relatable to like an hour-long DMT experience. Rick Strassman we had Rick on our podcast not long ago, and he was actually saying that the two compounds where people are really having these NDE experiences would be like, DMT and ketamine. Those are like the real, like the eye-opening ones where people are having these, oneness or psycho-spiritual experiences that are really propelling them forward in a significant direction.
Oh yes, I helped a lot of people with individual DMT ceremonies, whether it's Changa seems to be, I'm not sure if your audience is familiar with that, but you can take the NN and DMT and put it and layer it on Changa, and you can have a very controlled journey, and you can enter it very delicately, or you can go fully in. It's as you feel comfortable. And going back to what you said, is it kept showing you the same thing. Yeah. I worked with enough people that DMT can definitely do that. I call DMT the gateway. DMT it's all called the spirit molecule. Okay. But DMT in its 15, 20-minute sessions like that is it can either joke around with you and make it funny and pretty and silly, or it's very deep and spiritual, or it can be a little dark and heavy. It can be dark and heavy also. It'll surprise you. It
No,
it
for sure.
definitely knows your truth and how you're approaching it. Which I tell people, I've told people, don't overuse it, have intention. It needs to be done in a ceremonial way if you're seeking healing and enlightenment. And there has been a point, I've heard this with many people, myself included, when I first started DMT at home after ayahuasca, it kind of shut the door on me after a few months. I had just all this huge, vast playground to check out, and it was just, the best thing ever. And then it was just like, no, no more for you.
No, for sure. No,
Yeah.
I actually ended my psychedelic journey with the intermuscular shots of ketamine. I healed with
Okay.
psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, LSD,
Beautiful.
MDMA. I had hundreds of psychedelic experiences under my belt, but the thing is that the ketamine injections kept giving me the same message, and it was basically, I am the I am, and so are you. We all are, and
Yes.
it's time
Yep.
for me to stop getting lost in the medicine and actually apply what I learned to my life.
Integration.
Yeah,
Yeah, the integration. Yeah, the
yep.
ketamine, I am a huge proponent before it's legal. I just adore the clinics that are out there making changes and just trying to help people. I try to tell as many people as possible about that medicine and send research on it. Um, and like you said, it's a completely different journey from that to mushrooms. And the DMT journeys I was referring to, and ketamine can be the same way. It can kind of shut the door after a point. It's just developing a relationship, and how is it helping you neurologically, physiologically, and then how is it helping you mystically, spiritually? It's trying to connect the mind, body, spirit with all these medicines, how they're affecting each aspect of your life, and how you're making a difference. And for some people, maybe it's just going and getting the treatment, experiencing that medicine is sustaining them. And that's enough. They don't, if that's the best they could do at that moment, then that's what sustained them. Because some people are like, well, I should have gotten more. I just, I feel like I'm not integrating enough. And sometimes that's the best they can do, is to get there for the treatment.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, no, we've seen so many people that are just, there's no life or color left to them. And then through the course of their treatments, everything, they start to glow. Everything about them is different. We just had this one gentleman who had this crazy curly long hair and an unkempt beard. And after his third treatment, he groomed himself and he looks like a completely irrecognizable person.
Oh
And
my
we're
gosh.
into our doors.
No, this gentleman he was actually living in the woods, and his family had brought him in, and
Oh, wow.
he's only halfway through his sequence, and it's like he looks like a completely
Yeah.
when I walked in and I looked at him, I had to take a double take because I had no idea who he was for a second, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second, hey, how's it going?
Uh,
So
and
yeah,
that's what keeps you doing it. It just keeps you spreading the info, spreading the medicine, just letting people know. And that goes back to, he saw self-compassion and self-love,
yeah,
and if we don't have that first with us, we can't even start to change the world around of us.
no, well,
And yep.
the truth
And
is
this,
that
yep.
go ahead, no, go ahead,
Oh
go ahead.
no. Yeah. And this medicine, some people don't even understand self-love and self-compassion. They don't even understand how it happens in a journey. They see things, and it's like you said, it happens, it's not a one day, an instant change. It's just that you said 3 treatments later, he's just, boom, he found this self-love and self-compassion for himself.
Yeah, no, listen, I tell people that's what one of the major things that psychedelic medicines did for me was they actually gave me the ability to love myself enough to actually want to heal. I didn't even think I was worthy of that for a lot of years in my life. But, I think one of the most important things for people to always realize is that, like, it's like I can't heal anybody. The only person I can work on is myself. It's like, as cliche as it sounds, as I heal myself, I heal the world. Ram Dass said, all I can do is work on me. All you can do is work on you. That's the best we can do. And the truth is that that's what we have to do. It's like we have to be the embodiment of it. We have to have that energetic connection or that energetic attraction where it's like, you're embodying it, you're living it, you're doing the deal, and people see that and they're like, hey, wait a second, like, what's going on with you? I want to, like,
Mhm.
I want that in my life. And so
Yes.
An energetic
it
communion.
is an energetic communion. Our doctor says that all the time, Dr. Andrew Thorne.
Absolutely.
I
I
do think
love.
that that's one of the I do think that's one of the places where like a lot of people in the field though are like, I think that's where like, egos and spiritual narcissism can come to play sometimes, is like, people are like, oh, I'm a healer and I'm gonna heal you and I know what's best for you. And I think like, here at My Self Wellness, what we really do is we just say to people like, hey, listen, like, we're all in this together. We've, everybody that works our clinics done the treatments. We're all well versed in other psychedelic compounds also. And it's kind of just like, listen, like we've all had things that we've made it through on our own healing journeys. And this is what's worked for me. And if it sounds like something that might sound like you want to do in your life, that's cool too. But I think really just being able to support people and letting them know that, like they're the one that's in charge of their healing journey, and that, they need to find their own inner guru is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
biggest, you know?
It's just, it sounds so simple how this part of the conversation started was when the gentleman found self-love and self-care. It heals so much when we can just start honoring our body and recognizing how pure and what a gift it is to be here. And some people may think, is that the biggest thing you're going to get from the medicine? No, it really has to start with that, because like you said too, it's like when you heal yourself, you have that energetic shift. You walk different, you talk different, you share your story in a new way. You approach everything, your food, your surroundings, the company you keep. That's the medicine. That's when the medicine starts, is when you are walking your life day by day, grateful to go to bed, grateful to wake up, with self-care. And it slowly, the trauma and the pain, once you can love yourself and forgive yourself, that whatever you did or whatever happened, you can shed that. And that was the best that was available at that moment. And that you have the capability and opportunity to make a new direction.
No, for
Mm.
sure. I hear it.
Mm.
I've heard it a lot of times, and I really feel this message where it's like, you take the medicine until you become the medicine. And
I love it. Yeah,
and and
that's
and the
beautiful.
thing and the thing is that like it's funny because like all of the things that I was tapping into through other psychedelic, through my use of psychedelic compounds, these higher states of consciousness, I can tap into these things through meditation now, or like even just in my daily life. It's like weird. It's like when I get into a very high vibrational or high vibrational situation, it's almost like I can actually feel like I'm on some medicine, but I'm not on anything,
Oh, that is
and
beautiful.
I think that that's like a really important message for the listeners out there, is that, it's like, and it's what we were just talking about. The medicine isn't the answer. The medicine's the beginning. The medicine's the tool. It's the
Yes,
catalyst
yes.
that ignites that
Mhm.
fire inside of you. But the truth is that, it's like it's not the end all, and it's definitely not the final answer. It's to help you see what's already inside of you anyways, and tap into
Mhm.
that, because it's always been there. The medicine's just giving you a glimpse of it.
I tell people, especially um, the 5-MeO DMT experiences can be so quick and so profound. And I'll tell them, and that feeling they have after, I always tell them first, but it's hard to absorb everything we tell them. But I say, really hang on to that feeling this medicine gave you, because I say the same thing. That feeling is already in you. It's just a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when you are integrating and going back into your routine as a human, and you've had this powerful experience, it's a shift of consciousness. It's a shift of perspective that I believe allows you, like years of meditation teaches you, is just to observe the mind, not be of it, right?
Yep.
So these experiences can kind of allow you to observe, just go, oh, okay, that is not me. That situation is not me, that memory is not me, that old identity of self is not the true me. And that, like you said, starts the healing journey. And it just is a reminder for some people that couldn't break through and get that feeling of love, that this medicine can kind of give them that. And then they have the tools, because we're humans, we base things on sight, sound, smell, touch. You know, that's how we have memories. You know, we can think of some of our favorite memories, and we can think of if the sun was out, if it was cold, if it was wet. We can think of a smell, a touch, you know, a certain type of fabric will take us back to a memory. So I tell people to do that with the psychedelics. Let your particular journey enable you to have this blueprint, this memory, to help you hang on to that divine that's already in there.
I don't know, we always tell people that like ketamine, it's like you get to a meditative state that you're like a Buddhist monk. You can achieve what a monk has has achieved in just an hour at our facility.
50 years worth of
So true.
meditation in an hour.
And you know, so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you know, they don't even realize it. They don't, you know, we don't know what we know until we know what we don't know. So once we're exposed to that feeling, they have no idea. So part of my role as a guide is to make them aware of that experience as it's transcending them, as they're witnessing the mind. Let's call it ego death, shifts of consciousness. As they're witnessing that, to realize it's just a new aspect of self, that it's still you. You're just witnessing the mind. You're not in it.
That, and you know, I actually, and like when people go into these psychedelic experiences and the way that you're guiding them, it's like I used to tell our clients when they were going into their journeys, it's like, you know, always go back to your breath and don't think about anything too much while it's happening. Just watch the movie play out, the movie of the mind, the trip, whatever you want to call it. And the funny thing is that I was always like giving these suggestions, and then one day it dawned on me, and I was just like, you know, surrender to the medicine, just let go is the way. And I was saying all of this stuff, and then I was like, wait a second, I'm talking about life.
I know you're like
this isn't just like, this isn't like, this is what you're trying to do. The psychedelic experiences are literally just training you for what to do in life. You know, stay in a meditative state.
True.
Observe, don't get too attached to it. Always go back to your breath, you know. And it's just like, I was just like, this is what we're supposed to be doing all day, not just when we take psychedelic medicine.
Well said. You know, and I just used a term with a client this morning. You know, it's like, you know, I said, you can find that state of equanimity. You don't have to let the turbulence of the world, you don't have to be part of it. You know, go, because, you know, sometimes we think, well, we just want to stay home. We can't sit and meditate. I can't be home and meditate all day. I have to be in my company. I have to do this. I have to do that. And I go, okay, again, you can observe it. You don't have to be in it. So it's the same thing that you just said, that we can learn so much from surrendering to these journeys and getting connected with self.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, you know, you can joke around about it, but like, you know, even after enlightenment, you still got to do the laundry.
Exactly. Well, there's what's the phrase is chop wood and carry water, and then you chop wood and carry water again.
You know, I tell, like, when I work with people and I give them suggestions, I'm like, do you know that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey? And people are usually like, yeah, you know, I've seen it. And I'm like, be that. You know, like, if it seems like if an opportunity presents itself to you and it's not something that's going to hurt you or anybody else, go, show up. You know, it's like, I think 85% of life, and I've heard this quote before, 85% of life is just showing up. So it's like, you know, it's not, when people are talking about you need to stay in a meditative state, that doesn't mean sitting at home with your legs crossed, lighting incense and just meditating constantly. It's like, you're supposed to stay in a meditative state throughout your day, meaning like you still go places, you still do all of these things, but you be that observer and you watch things play out and not get energetically attached to things that don't serve you. You know, and I think that that's a really important thing for people to know. It's like, I meditate when I walk the dog. I meditate when I'm at the gym working out. Like in my workout, I'm in a meditative state. And that's just literally when you're just detaching from the mind and letting yourself go, like always going back to your breath and just being in the moment, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Is just being the observer. And when we can start to notice when our emotions are getting out of control or something's elevating our heart rate or someone, we can just go, okay, let me witness that, and just sit with it. And you can always get back to it later. You don't have to engage with it.
For sure.
It's yeah, but it's meditation. When people work, it can be meditation, just calming the mind, programming the mind. There's many different forms of it. Well said.
So one thing, one of the other things that I ask our the people that we interview on our show or have on our show is, if you could give one message to the world, what would it be? For our listeners, if you could give one message, what would it be?
Hmm.
It's our hot seat.
Wow. Yeah, I love it. So beautiful. I would love for people to know that they never need to be alone, that they never need to feel isolated or feel that somebody doesn't understand their pain. I just, would want them to just know that someone's there, and humanity, there is beauty in humanity, just so they can feel that love from others. And we need that to support ourselves, because it can be very dark and very hard. And one thing I work with people a lot is I tell them, I want to be the person you call when you had a really shitty day. I want to be the person you connect with me when you just didn't make the choices you wanted to make today. Maybe it's an addiction and they were so proud because they, had the strength for so long and then they didn't. And just to know that there's a loving, compassionate person to say, it's okay, that somebody's here to support you. It's just feeling alone is something you just wouldn't want to wish on anybody. You just building that sadhana, that community, helps you stay strong.
It's beautiful.
So that was a big question, but that's the first thing that came to my heart. It's just so many people suffer when they're alone. And I know you guys see it because, like you said it with that gentleman, he's alone in the woods. He was so alone. He went to the woods, and it was family that brought him. Please go. And he found, and then once you start finding that self-love, you do start finding Sagana is your community, your people, your tribe, just sharing, and that's your support. That's support to know, hey, this life isn't so bad. There's some really good people out here.
For
Even
sure.
on the bad days, even on the bad days are the best. I love it when people call me and everything's going great. But to be honest, the role I chose, I get most of the calls are when people are in a very dark place.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lesson that has to be learned through everything. I tell people, listen, this is the synchronistic flow of the evolution of consciousness, meaning that what might seem like something catastrophic or not ideal that we're going through in our day is most likely going to lead us to some sort of self-realization or some sort of epiphany that's actually going to propel us forward in the right direction eventually. It's like
teach us something.
I used to look up when I was in my active addiction, and I would look up into the sky before I realized like I was talking to something separate from myself, but I was like, why me? Like, why am I going through this? Why am I suffering? How come I can't stay sober? Why, God, why are you doing this to me? And I realized that, it's like everything I went through made me the person that I am today. I suffered from, all of those different things. And now I get to go back and, back in the flames that I was once in, and I get to help pull other people out. I can relate to them. And so it's like, I realized that I'm grateful for all the suffering that I went through, because I'm a true believer that, suffering leads to awakening. And so, it's like
Yes.
I had to go through everything that I went through to get to where I'm at today. So now I can be of service and help other people.
And you are, and you're shining. Like you said, if you didn't have that lineage, if you didn't have, oh gosh, I just said this to somebody last night. I'm doing a long weekend coming up, and it's just been a lot of calls this week. But it came to me is all these experiences in our life. Some people want to just forget them and just get rid of them, right? They just want it gone. And imagine your soul, imagine your identity as a soul beyond this human experience, who you were before here, who you're going to be after here. Every single thing is like a woven piece of fabric into eternity of your soul. You would never take a piece of that fabric out. It would unravel. You need every single piece of fabric that was woven in there that made you who you are today.
Yep.
And they say, like you said, the obstacles are the path. Once we learn to overcome these and we learn to witness them and have self-love, is the true beauty, because we can reach out to others' humanity and support each other.
Beautifully said. I love it.
So if anybody wanted to contact you, how would they do that?
I think the easiest way is the Samadhi Pathways .com, and I get back with them right from there.
Excellent.
Yeah, we go all over. We're kind of all over the US, actually, and beyond. We go to people, we do different retreats in Mexico, all over.
Could you spell the name of could you spell how you would type out Samadhi?
Yeah, SamadhiPathways.com. And Samadhi Pathways is, just like you said earlier, there's so many different modalities to healing. Samadhi is a Sanskrit word for bliss, enlightenment. And pathways is just, there's many different paths that lead you to your bliss, your enlightenment. And I work with other people and independently as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to coming to Florida. I've got a couple other reasons to come down. I'd love to stop in and see you guys.
We would love to have you.
I love it. It was beautiful talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners for journeying with us today on this edition of Psychedelic Radio. You can download the past programs of our episode by going to cannabisradio.com or by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. To learn more about the Warriors of Consciousness, please visit us on social media or go to wocfund.com and watch the video. .org and watch the videos. And if nobody's told you that they love you lately, we do.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.